Title: Shadows of the Mekong. Outline: Prelude to War, 1945 to 1955. French colonial rule and the First Indochina War. The rise of the Viet Minh and Ho Chi Minh. The Geneva Accords and the division of Vietnam. U.S. involvement begins. Escalation, 1956 to 1965. Formation of the Viet Cong. Early American advisory missions. Gulf of Tonkin incident and the start of full-scale war. Introduction of the draft in the U.S. Into the Fire, 1966 to 1968. The lives of American soldiers in Vietnam. Guerrilla warfare tactics of the Viet Cong. The Tet Offensive and its impact. Stories from both U.S. and Vietnamese perspectives. The Turning Point, 1969 to 1972. Nixon's Vietnamization strategy. The anti-war movement in the U.S. Secret bombings in Cambodia and Laos. The Lai Massacre and its fallout. The Fall of Saigon, 1973 to 1975. U.S. withdrawal and the Paris Peace Accords. The final offensive by North Vietnam. Evacuation of the U.S. Embassy. Stories of those left behind. Aftermath and legacy, 1976-present. The struggles of veterans and PTSD. The impact on Vietnam and its people. War memorials and reconciliation. Lessons learned and the war's influence on modern conflicts. Prologue. June 8, 1969, Quang Tri Province, Vietnam. The jungle was alive with whispers. Sweat dripped from Private James Walker's brow as he gripped his M16, eyes scanning the dense thicket ahead. His unit had been marching for hours, the weight of their gear pressing into their shoulders like a relentless force. A rustle in the bushes. Silence. Then gunfire. Walker dove into the mud as bullets snapped overhead, tearing through the leaves. His heart pounded as Sergeant Martinez shouted orders. Find cover. Return fire. Across the battlefield, Nguyen Minh Dao adjusted the sights on his AK-47. A member of the Viet Cong, he had trained for this moment since he was 16. The Americans had superior firepower, but he had something they didn't: home field advantage. The battle raged on, the cries of the wounded mixing with the roar of helicopters above. Two soldiers, two different sides, but one shared fate. The war had taken everything from them, and yet it demanded more. And this was only the beginning. Chapter 1. The Road to War. Saigon, 1955. The streets of Saigon pulsed with life. Vendors called out, selling steaming bowls of pho to the morning crowd. Bicycles weaved between military jeeps as Western jazz music blared from a distant cafe. At first glance, it was a city of opportunity, of energy, but beneath the surface, tension simmered. A young officer, Lieutenant Robert Hayes, sat at a small table outside the cafe, nursing a cup of thick Vietnamese coffee. He had arrived in Vietnam only weeks ago, one of many American advisors sent to aid the South Vietnamese government. He flipped through a dossier on the Viet Minh, memorizing names and strategies, but his mind kept drifting to the people around him. Did they see him as a friend? Or an occupier? Across the city, Nguyen Minh Dao's father, a former Viet Minh fighter, sat in a dimly lit apartment, listening to a clandestine radio broadcast from Hanoi. The Americans are coming, the voice declared. We must prepare. The revolution is not over. Dao, only 14 at the time, watched his father with curiosity. Father, will there be war again? His father's face was etched with years of struggle. War never truly ends, son. It only changes. Little did they know, the seeds of the next great conflict had already been sown. Chapter 2. The first shots fired. Gulf of Tonkin, August 2, 1964. The USS Maddox cut through the dark waters of the South China Sea, its radar operators scanning for any signs of hostile activity. The night was thick with humidity, the air so dense it felt like a physical weight pressing down. Lieutenant Commander William Turner studied the radar screen, his brow furrowed. Unidentified vessel, closing in fast. All hands, prepare for engagement. Moments later, a flash of movement, the roar of torpedoes launched from the darkness. Alarms blared as the crew scrambled to respond. The U.S. ship returned fire, and within minutes, the North Vietnamese patrol boats retreated into the night. The incident would spark one of the most controversial escalations in American military history. Within days, President Lyndon B. Johnson addressed the nation. "The attack on our vessels in international waters cannot go unanswered. We will take all necessary measures to repel any armed attack." In Hanoi, General Vo Nguyen Giap studied reports of the engagement. He knew what was coming. "This war," he muttered, "has truly begun."